Samuel Stubbs, yardbarker.com. Denny Samuel Stubbs, Field Level Media. Austin Samuel Stubbs, Yardbarker.
Welcome to the Scrum Session Podcast with Samuel Stubbs.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Scrum Session Podcast. I told you last week I would make up with our next show for having very few audio clips. We only had one Cole Custer on our last show. We have plenty tonight. You're not going to hear a ton of my voice unless it's asking questions. Unless it's asking questions, rather, in some of the have. I was at Pocono this past weekend covering races for yardbarker.com. We did a show Friday. We did one Saturday. Couldn't do one Sunday because I got home from the track at about 12:30 in the morning. It was a very long day, a very long weekend, a fun weekend, though, to be sure. So we have plenty of clips tonight. Talking about the Pocono races, we're going to hear from Connor Zilich. We're going to hear from Joe Gibbs, James Small, Chase Briscoe. So we're going to hear from Michael McDowell, Bubba Wallace, and Alex Bowman on their playoff hopes before Sunday's race at Pocono. So we're racing Saturday at Atlanta. Those clips were taken before the race at Atlanta, or the race at Pocono on Saturday during the media bullpen. We're also going to hear from Josh Berry kind of about what his plan for Atlanta is as well. So that's all that we had to look forward to. Let's first, though, very briefly, before we get to any of that, talk about the Truck Series race. We'll also preview the Cup races and the Xfinity race and Truck race later on in the show. But I want to talk first about this Truck race. Corey Heim, just bad luck again, flat tire late. Some controversy on who was the control truck on the restart. Hocevar thought it was him. He was penalized. Riggs, I don't know if he knew it was him or not, but he ends up getting thrown a bone, ends up winning the race, locking himself into the playoffs. Congrats to Lane Riggs. Third career win, first one of the year, a win that felt like it was a long time coming, and really feel like it was. So congratulations, Lane Riggs. The Xfinity race won by Connor Zilich. Crew chiefed by Dale Earnhardt Jr. Wasn't able to ask Jr. a question in his post-race presser. As you can imagine, that was one of the busiest pressers of the year as far as people who wanted to get in a question. But I was able to ask Connor Zilich about what it is about him as an 18-year-old driver, an 18-year-old prospect, that he's able to go to Pocono for the first time, fast in practice, top 10 qualifying effort, and went out and won the race. Here's what Connor Zilich had to say after his second win of the year, the third win of his Xfinity Series career at Pocono.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. I've done a lot to prepare myself for this, and the people at Chevy, Josh Wise, Scott Speed, I never feel like I show up to a racetrack and I'm like, man, I'm nervous. I don't know what I'm going to do. I always have a plan showing up to a new racetrack, and I showed that today. I went out for practice, and I rolled out, and I was third on the first lap. Never seeing the place before, and it's not easy to do that, right? I was wide open going down into one, and I'm like, man, this is fast. You kind of just have to trust the simulator and trust your notes and what you've seen and watched. And, I don't overdo it. I try to get myself an idea of what I'm going to do when I show up to the racetrack without, having to overthink about it. A lot of guys watch so much film and watch so much SMT and drown themselves in it that, they have this cold or stone cut plan that, when I show up, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and things can change. So, it's just about staying on your toes and being prepared no matter what the situation is. And, I feel like I did a good job just accepting every situation I was put in today and trying to run my next best corner.
You mentioned accepting the positions you were put in today. Obviously, we know restarts here can get crazy. There was a lot of them with that rash of yellows that we had. And you go back to races like Coda earlier this year when you had the penalty and had to come back through the field. How are you at 18 years old and a driver that's still relatively new on the scene able to stay calm and able to, I guess, maturely get through situations that other guys might fold in, I guess, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I've folded more times than I should be able to count this year, so I wouldn't say I'm perfect, but it's just a matter of preparing and not letting any situation be too big. Those restarts can be chaotic and nerve-wracking, especially, when you're up there at the front racing for a win. But, I treat this race or any race, just the same. I don't overthink it. I just run my next best corner and hope that what I do works out for me. Sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it does. And today it worked out, and I'm glad it did. But there's a lot that goes into preparing for these moments, and I do my best to be ready for anything that gets thrown at me.
So Zilich wins the Xfinity Series race. Obviously, with this COTA win, he was already locked into the playoffs. Before we get to all the Chase Briscoe stuff, I want to talk about what seems to be one of the biggest topics of the week. That was dirty air and fuel mileage at Pocono. So in the closing laps of this race, what is the Great American Getaway 400? Shout out Pennsylvania Governor and Lieutenant Governor. They were both at the race, did a little presser with us before the race. So that was fun to see them. There are a lot of dignitaries from Pennsylvania there, which is great, seeing as it was a race effectively sponsored by the Pennsylvania Tourism Department. But fuel mileage became a big part of this race. Obviously, Briscoe, his crew chief James Small, said we are effed on fuel, were his words, kind of. He said, we're screwed, basically. It's not looking good for us on fuel. It's not. We are going to be 3 to 4 laps short. That was, I think, with about 35 to go around there. Then the yellow comes out. We get a restart, and it's going to be Chase Briscoe and Denny Hamlin going for the win. A guy who's won 2 Cup races in his career in Briscoe, and a driver in Hamlin that is the winningest driver of all time at Pocono with 7 wins. A guy who's won 57 Cup races, one of the greatest of all time, maybe the greatest, never won a championship yet. And, who would you wager on to win that battle? Probably Denny Hamlin. But Briscoe, and say what you will about dirty air, but Briscoe drove the race of his life on Sunday, especially in those last 30 laps. Saving gas, first off, and then doing so while holding off Hamlin. Yes, dirty air. Yes, it's hard to pass at Pocono. But doing one of those would have been impressive. Doing both at the same time, even more so in a pressure-packed situation, because now he's in the playoffs, confirmed, he's locked in. And he told us in the post-race presser in the media center, like, there's a certain expectation when you go to Joe Gibbs Racing, coming from a team, and as he already said, he hadn't really had his feet held to the fire like he had at JGR when he rolled in there. So I asked Joe Gibbs, James Small winning that race is huge. I asked Joe Gibbs, it's the second new driver crew chief combination to win a race this year. What makes that happen at Joe Gibbs Racing? And then I asked James Small about, I also don't remember fully, but like the relationship he has with Chase and being at Joe Gibbs Racing, what that's like to get back to victory lane. Here's what Joe Gibbs and James Small had to say.
I think we've kind of been talking about, it's the people. And I think everything, for instance, with Chris Gale, we had signed his contract when things weren't going well a year ago, because we just think the world of him. And we decided to make that change that we made, and he's jumped right into the 11th spot. The other part of it is, everybody knows here, we took Chris Gaypart, moved him to competition director. So we, inside of our race team, we were doing a lot. And so I think all those moves were really, thought over, prayed over. But we got great people, and we made those changes. And you're never sure in pro sports. It's so hard. But it certainly has been rewarding for us so far this year.
Yeah, huge weight, huge relief. It's been hard. We've been very, very close. I've won about 10 times. I've lost about 10 times as many races that we've won. So, it's just so hard to win in this series. You have to be perfect. You have to have perfect days, and it all just comes down to execution. And, you can have a fast car, but that's probably not the biggest thing. You need a little luck, and you need to be, keep it clean all day. And, just happy we have one of those days today, and, we got Coach a win that he deserves.
Also got to talk with Chase Briscoe after the race in the media center. And again, congrats to Chase Briscoe. Sorry, I can't talk. Huge win for this kid. His first of the year. He's locked in the playoffs. First with JGR. Third of his career. Huge, huge win. for Chase Briscoe. And a really special one for him. Obviously, it's his first with Joe Gibbs Racing, but I asked him, what's it been like getting to know somebody like Coach Gibbs that has so much experience, that's been here in the winner's circle in NASCAR? He's won 3 Super Bowls as an NFL head coach. What's it been like getting to know Joe Gibbs and adapting to the culture with Joe Gibbs Racing? Here's what Chase Briscoe had to say Sunday night in the Pocono Media Center.
Yeah, it's super special and just humbling. First off, that out of all the people that Coach picked me, I'm sure that there was a lot of people kind of scratching their head, even internally. I'm sure that when he said, "Hey, I think we should go with this guy," and for him to feel validated is a great thing. As a driver, to know that your boss is happy with you. But yeah, I mean, when you look at the list of Hall of Famers that have gotten to drive for Coach Gibbs and to get in victory lane, the fact that I'm going to be on that honestly pretty short list is pretty special. So yeah, it's crazy. I mean, literally as a kid, I talk about it all the time. I would play my sprint car game in a Joe Gibbs Home Depot uniform, and just being a diehard Tony Stewart fan now to be able to deliver victory for Coach is pretty special.
So moving on from Chase Briscoe, I wanted to talk before we get to our last one and preview Atlanta and Lime Rock. I asked Michael McDowell, Alex Bowman, and Bubba Wallace on Saturday before Pocono. So keep in mind, they're going to be talking 10 races left in the regular season before Pocono, their situation going in. But I kept them in because they all pretty much said they feel like they need to win. I feel like that's still pretty accurate for all of them after Pocono going into Atlanta. 9 races left in the regular season. Nobody can really feel safe on points. Here's what McDowell, Bowman, and Bubba Wallace had to say about their playoff situation before Pocono. And like I said, I think their reasoning, their logic, their feelings here hold up as we go to Atlanta this weekend.
You're always looking for a win. I think that, relying just on points at where we're at is not a good strategy. So you got to try to win. We know that. But there's still good outside chance that we can point our way in. We're fast enough every weekend to put ourselves in contention to do that. But you're only 1 or 2 weekends away from somebody else below the cut line winning and not being in, right? So I think you just got to take that mindset of staying, locked in on trying to win a race. And we got good racetracks coming up to do that. Looking forward to the next few weeks. And, we got, 10 more before the playoffs start. So we have a lot of great opportunities.
We're not in a good spot by any means, I don't think. Just the last 2 months, leading into Mexico, we've led a ton of points. So just need to get back to running how we should. I think last week was a good, swing back in the right direction. But, would definitely be better to win and be locked in. But, we were doing all the right things and then figured out how to crash quite a bit. So hopefully that's behind us. We can just be pointing in the right direction.
How big was that top 5 in Mexico in terms of not just the points, the good that comes from that, but also just the momentum and the confidence boost you get from that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wasn't even sure I was going to be able to run the race. So obviously, kind of going through everything that happened that week and being able to come out with a top 5 felt really good.
I've had that mentality for the last almost 3 years. We need to win, so nothing's changed there. I think we've been executing all year, putting some races together. Really pleased with how Mexico City went. We're at a decent spot, not a safe spot at all. We're winning to make it safe, so that's our only goal in the month.
The last clip I'm going to play for y'all, I had the pleasure of talking with Josh Berry today on Wednesday when I'm recording this with Ford Performance, putting together their weekly Zoom meeting with Ford drivers. Asked Josh Berry if he could kind of walk us through the game plan, I guess, of what it's like putting together a game plan for these super speedway drafting races with Ford, with Penske. He wouldn't divulge any details. He was very tight-lipped in that regard. Here's what he had to say, though, about teamwork and why it's so crucial at those speedway races.
It's pretty easy to see that, we try to work together the best we can and take care of each other and our teammates at Ford to keep as many numbers up front as we can when we get to the end of the stages and then of the race. And I mean, that's pretty simple. I think it's just if you can have people around you at the end of these races that you can trust and rely on, it just slows down the decision making at the end of these races. And obviously, I've only been a part of it for a couple with these guys, but it's worked out well, and I'm excited to go there and keep working on it and take what I learned in the spring race.
So this weekend, of course, Cup Series going to Atlanta for the first race of the in-season tournament. We also had the Xfinity Series going to Atlanta, big race, and then our playoff push. The Truck Series is going to Lime Rock Park, a road course race. My pick for this race isn't going to surprise you. I'm going to pick Corey Heim. Yes, boring pick, whatever. He won at Mid-Ohio a few years ago, I think 2022, in the Truck Series. He's just fast every week, and it feels like he is owed to win. If it's not going to come at an oval or a triangle, I guess, at Pocono, it makes sense that he win one at a road course where, while he's still probably the favorite, he might not be the odds-on favorite, at least not exclusively. But I think Corey Heim's going to win this race. I think road courses, unless it's a restart, it's a little harder to have something just completely random go wrong. I think, I don't know. I feel good about Corey Heim this week. Xfinity race, you have to pick Austin Hill. I mean, can you not pick Austin Hill? Georgia boy, is he going for his fourth win in a row in this race? I don't remember who won the summer race at Atlanta last year. But it's some ridiculous stat that Austin Hill's going for at Atlanta in the Xfinity Series. I'm picking him. I feel good. Jesse Love's going to be quick. Almirola is in this race, so he's going to be fast. JRM cars are always going to be fast. Keep an eye on the Burton cousins, Jeb and Harrison. They're both around the playoff bubble. A win would solve all their problems. Ryan Sieg, another Georgia native, kind of around the playoff bubble, looking for a big W. It'd be huge for him. Finally, the Cup race. And this is maybe the hardest one of the weekend to pick, but I feel good about Joey Logano. You're going to hear from Logano and Shane Van Gisbergen on next week's show. Ask them at Pocono about their playoffs, their championship hopes, and whatnot, kind of in that same vein. So you're going to hear from all of them next week, from Logano and SVG and more. But I'm going to pick Joey Logano to win this race. That 22 team has been in a bit of a slump recently. Yes. But they're so good on drafting tracks. Logano's won at Atlanta, New Atlanta, twice, 2023 in the spring, 24 in the fall. So this is not a pressure pack race. He's locked into the postseason. He's in a good spot, but it's a great opportunity, I think, for Logano to break through, get a second win, stack playoff points, and also to get some momentum back in that camp. So Heim for the Trucks, Austin Hill for Xfinity, Joey Logano for the Cup race. Those are my picks. Subscribe on the YouTube channel. Follow us wherever you get your podcast. Share, get the word out. And if you want to read my articles, because I'm writing articles pretty much about all the stuff, all the quotes you're hearing in these shows, yardbarker.com/NASCAR. And also support us on the Buy Me a Coffee platform. That link is on Spotify, everywhere that you get your podcast. That link is there to help support us financially. It's also here on YouTube. I'm Samuel Stubbs, a NASCAR journalist at yardbarker.com here and the host of Scrum Session. We will see you next week, everybody. Goodbye.